Hello everyone! If you're currently preparing for the IELTS and have no idea how to score high on the speaking section, please continue watching this video. We'll cover the structure of the speaking test, delve into the high-scoring tips and tricks, learn about the top linking words to use to sound natural, and then equipped with all this knowledge, we'll take a full speaking test where I'll show you how to answer questions effectively and without panicking. If you need someone to evaluate your speaking and writing, sign up for our IELTS course and schedule a consultation with me. I'll tell you how you'll score on the writing and speaking if you take the test tomorrow, and what you should do differently to get a higher score. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get more tips and tricks about the test, and click the bell icon to be notified when the next video comes out. Let's get started! One of the reasons why so many students struggle with the IELTS speaking section is that they don't fully understand what the examiners are looking for in order to achieve a high score. Some use too much slang and filler words. Others make their answers too complicated by using formal cohesive devices and vocabulary. There are also those who think that using idiomatic language means including an idiom in every sentence they say. I've seen test takers who don't elaborate enough on their ideas, especially in part 3, and those who give too much detail in part 1. Let me know in the comments if you do any of these, by the way. The problem is that none of these things will allow you to score higher than a 6 or 6.5. If you want to get a higher score, your first step should be to get a very clear understanding of what is expected of you. That's why today I've decided to give you not only tips on how to do better on the IELTS speaking section, but also to highlight the essential aspects that you need to keep in mind in order to score 7+ on the IELTS speaking section. We'll start with a brief introduction to the IELTS speaking section, where I'll remind you what this part of the test looks like. Then, we'll analyze what the examiners expect from you on test day, and look at strategies and techniques for scoring high. The IELTS speaking section is divided into 3 parts. In part 1, you'll be asked questions on 2 different topics related to your life. In part 2, you'll have 1 to 2 minutes to speak on a given topic. Part 3 lasts 4 to 5 minutes and contains more questions related to the main topic of part 2. You'll have to give longer answers, often up to 1 minute or more, with more elaboration. As you can see, the 2 speaking formats in which you need to excel are the interview and the monologue. This means that you should be good at creating effective 1 to 2 minute speeches and answering questions in a precise and natural way. Sounding natural is the very first thing I want us to focus on. As you probably all know by now, in order to get a high score on the IELTS speaking test, you should sound natural. But what does that mean? Well, you obviously don't want to be too formal. For example, you don't want to use formal linking words like furthermore, to exemplify, hence, and so on. You also don't want to sound too mechanical, like a robot, especially like a very scared robot that is afraid of making the slightest mistake, and when it does, it's so scared that it cannot say a word or starts stuttering uncontrollably. However, I have noticed that when I tell this to my students, I often get super informal responses, full of slang and filler words. So while you need to sound natural and not too formal, using slang and too many filler words will hurt your score. What about filler words, you may ask? Should I use them in my responses or not? Well, if you just sprinkle a few relevant filler words into your answers to fill in the gaps while you think, that's totally fine. For example, adding words like, well, like, actually, seriously, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, clearly is possible, but in very small doses. If you feel like you're overusing them, which a lot of students do, you should try to avoid them. Saying like 20 times in an answer will only lower your score. However, you can definitely use filler words, or even better, time-consuming phrases that give you some time to think about the question. This will ensure that you don't pause or hesitate too much. Even if the question is challenging and you don't know what to say, keep talking rather than panicking or staying silent for too long. For example, you can say, "That's a difficult question. Let me think about it." "That's an interesting question. I haven't thought about it before. It's been so long since I thought about it, but my guess would be that." You can also correct yourself when you make a mistake. You can say, "What I mean is that." "What I actually meant was." "What I'm trying to say is that." So, tip number 1, control your language. Avoid being too formal or too informal. Don't use slang or formal cohesive devices. Also, don't use too many filler words. Record yourself answering questions and giving monologues and then listen to them. If you hear too many filler words, cut them out. Then answer the same question again and try to control your speech. Also, try to avoid saying and ah. If you do it once, there is nothing wrong with it. But if you have too many of these sounds, your fluency score will be lowered. This is why our tip number 2 is to generate ideas for IELTS speaking topics. Most of the time, we need filler words and ums when we have nothing to say. For example, you're asked to give a monologue about your favorite perfume. Let's say you've never used perfume in your life. Would it be easy for you to start talking fluently about this topic on the spot? Will you be able to minimize pauses and hesitations? I don't think so. But if you prepare in advance and brainstorm ideas, you'll feel much more confident and you'll certainly score higher. To practice, take 2 to 3 recent IELTS speaking topics every day and try to answer them. If the question is easy, just skim it and move on to the next one. However, if the question is challenging, take your time to think about what you can say. This will make you much better prepared for test day. You might think that native speakers use filler words and ums and ums all the time. If I have to sound like a native speaker, why can't I do the same? Thing is, the IELTS speaking test is not about being as fluent as a native speaker. Many native speakers can ace the test on their first try and don't score higher than a 7. If you want to reach the top, like a band 9, you should speak like a person who has been educated to graduate level at a university where English is the language of study. You can watch university students and graduates answer questions on random topics. There are many such interviews on YouTube. For example, let's look at one of them.
Degrees from universities like Oxford do is give you sort of that rubber stamp approval on your CV to tell corporations that you are like one of them.
We actually need more people with vocational skills. People who are doing medicine here, they're going to make like £12 an hour. Plumbers, they make so much money because we don't have enough plumbers.
Given my degree, even if I went into a job, I don't think I would be able to pay it off quickly enough.
As you can see, they had some fillers in their answers, but not too many. So again, using fillers now and then is perfectly normal and won't hurt your score. But if you overdo it and disturb the flow of your ideas, it will lower your score, especially in the fluency and coherence part. Which brings us to tip number 3. If you want to score 8, 8.5 or 9 on the IELTS speaking section, you need to take your speaking skills to another level. So make sure you expose yourself to as much correct and fine English as possible. The best way to do this is to watch videos and podcasts. Podcasts will help you prepare for answering parts 1 and 3 because they show how people answer questions naturally. Watching videos gives you a better idea of ideal fluency and speaking speed. So be sure to watch some to prepare for part 2. Some good podcasts and videos I would suggest are 1. Ali Abdaal's YouTube channel and his Deep Dive podcast. Ali is a Cambridge graduate and he covers a lot of interesting topics on his channels. He has an amazing vocabulary and varied grammar, so it's a great pleasure to listen to him. What I love about the vocabulary he uses is that it's exactly what you need for the IELTS speaking test. Not too formal, but not too informal either. As you watch a video or podcast, write down 5 to 10 new words and then try to summarize what you've learned using those words. For example, while watching this video, I wrote down something like this: genuinely, life-changing skills, in our side hustle, to be fully present, we are bombarded by distractions, endless options, incredibly important to cultivate the ability to focus over the years, is directly proportional to, I was burning the midnight oil, I was feeling really overwhelmed, doing an extra degree, and that's just from watching the first minute and a half of the video. You can also check out the podcast Rise Life Stories of Accomplished Individuals, hosted by Gary Lipovetsky, who is an entrepreneur and business owner. In the podcast, Gary digs deep into the lives of interesting people, uncovering the challenges they faced along the way and extracting their knowledge and expertise. Again, I love the language used by both the host and the guests. I think you can learn a lot of vocabulary that will help you to improve your IELTS score for any section. I especially like the topic-specific vocabulary you can get from each podcast. 2 other channels I'd recommend are Unjaded Jade and Ruby Granger. The girls are also amazing. Their speaking skills are very good, and if you listen to them long enough, you'll soon find yourself using many of the expressions and phrases they use in their videos. Working on expanding your vocabulary in this way will ensure you can use it with full flexibility and precision in all areas. Tip number 5, don't learn lists of words for each speaking topic. You probably think this is something you should do as you go through the IELTS speaking questions. Instead, what I often see from my students in our one-on-one sessions is that when they try to forcefully add certain words to their answers, they end up losing their fluency and make mistakes. So one thing you should do is expand your vocabulary in general by watching videos and podcasts and exposing yourself to as much quality English as possible. Another thing is to go through the typical and latest IELTS speaking question types. When you do this, just think about the answer you'd give in your native language and look up the words you might be missing. That's it. Tip number 6. Don't force too many idioms and phrasal verbs into your answers. Let's listen carefully to a small clip from Ruby's video to get an idea of what I'm talking about.
And the streets were looking beautiful. Honestly, I've missed Oxford so much. I can't tell you how much I've missed the city. And that's also coming as somebody who really does not like cities. I never imagined myself being excited to go back to a city.
It's Ruby and good morning. I'm back in Oxford now for Hilary term, which is the 2nd term. And I went to the library this morning just to do some personal reading and journaling. Grabbed a coffee. Yes, I am mad because it's an iced Americano, but I really just prefer iced coffee.
This was a perfect example of using idiomatic vocabulary. As you can see, she didn't bombard us with idioms or phrasal verbs in every sentence. In fact, idiomatic language is natural in expression and correct without being too formal. So one more reason to commit to quality English is to sound idiomatic without too many idioms. Actually, idiomatic vocabulary really helps in the speaking section because it allows you to get the same message across in a faster and more natural way. For example, what's the word we use to describe something that really annoys us? We use the word pet peeve. Smoking is one of my pet peeves. I hate it when people smoke around me. Another example is a soft-spoken person. That's the person who has a quiet or gentle voice. Some people have a loud voice, some people have a soft voice, and these people are soft-spoken. Tip number 7, avoid saying a lot in part 1, but elaborate more on your ideas in part 3. While in part 1, you should only give a few sentences in response. In part 3, you should include many examples and explanations. Part 3 of the IELTS speaking is specifically designed to provide you with the opportunity to discuss topics related to part 2 in much greater depth. This part of the test focuses on your ability to express and justify opinions and to analyze, discuss, and speculate about issues. The examiner will help you do this by asking you questions that explore the topic area in more depth. If you do not expand on the questions in Part 3, the examiner may think that your vocabulary is limited. So, be prepared for the examiner to encourage you to keep talking and see how much you can explore the topic. Let's review briefly before moving on to the next few tips. To get a high score for fluency and coherence, you should speak fluently with only rare repetition or self-correction. Make only content-related hesitations rather than to find words or grammar. Speak coherently with fully appropriate cohesive features. Develop topics fully and appropriately. For lexical resource, make sure you use vocabulary with full flexibility and precision in all topics. Use idiomatic language naturally and accurately. As you may have guessed, these are the criteria that IELTS examiners use to assess your performance. There are actually 4 such criteria: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. For grammatical range and accuracy, you should use a full range of structures naturally and appropriately, and produce consistently accurate structures apart from slips. So tip 8 is to use different grammar structures in your answers. Now, the important thing is not only to use a variety of grammar structures, but also to use them naturally and appropriately. According to IDP IELTS, it's important that you can match the grammar structure with the appropriate function. For example, if you're describing the situation in your country, you can use present, perfect, and past tenses. When thinking about the future, you should consider introducing conditionals, future tenses, and modal verbs, such as may, might, should, could, and so on. This brings us to tip number 9. Drill grammar. To make any grammatical construction sound natural, you should make it an integral part of your speech. This means that you should first drill the forms and then learn and practice ways to use that construction successfully. What I do with my IELTS students is that I carefully observe their speech, note their weaknesses and the constructions they should adopt, and then we repeat each construction over and over again until it becomes so ingrained in their minds that they start using it without thinking, just like they do in their native language. Listening to podcasts and audiobooks in English also helps a lot, because you can start using some correct grammar structures automatically, because you've heard them a lot. Finally, the last criterion is pronunciation. You should be able to use a full range of pronunciation features with precision and subtlety, sustain flexible use of features throughout, and be effortless to understand. The best way to achieve all this is to use the shadowing technique. You can use the Deep English website, where you can listen and repeat, imitating the speaker's intonation, pronunciation, and pitch. Are you planning to take the IELTS speaking test soon? Then listen carefully to this answer and tell me what you think. What is your favorite hobby, and why do you enjoy it? My favorite hobby is reading. I enjoy it because it helps me relax and escape from reality. I read books on different topics: fiction, history, and science. I usually read for about an hour every night. Will this answer score well on the IELTS speaking section? Not really. Why not? It doesn't sound natural. That's how I hear many of my students speak in our speaking evaluation sessions. What many of them forget is that the key to scoring high on the IELTS speaking test is to sound natural, the way you normally sound when conversing in your native language. Would you answer that way if I asked you the same question in your native language? I don't think so. Then what is missing? Well, actually, there are a few things missing in that answer, but the one we're going to address today is the lack of linking words. What are linking words? They are little words or phrases that act like bridges in sentences or paragraphs. They help connect ideas smoothly and make your writing or speaking easier to understand. Adding them would have made our response a bit less robotic and more fluent. Effective use of linking words also improves the coherence and fluidity of the answer, making it sound more natural and engaging. So, as you've probably guessed, In this video, we're going to talk about the 16 most effective linking words to use in IELTS speaking. Again, remember that simply adding linking words to your answers isn't enough to get a high score. There are a number of other important factors to consider. If you're about to take the test and want to find out what you're doing wrong and how you can score higher, enroll in our IELTS prep course and get your speaking and writing skills evaluated. The promo code link is below. Also, we've created a free PDF file with academic vocabulary to help you improve your score in every section of the IELTS test. You can find the link to the PDF in the description below. Now, your mini assignment will be to watch the lesson carefully, write down the linking words you find most useful, and then answer the same question again using those words. You can share your responses in the comments below. Let's get started. There are 3 typical mistakes IELTS students usually make with linking words. The first mistake is to avoid connecting words altogether. You'd be surprised, but in my one-on-one sessions, I often see advanced students who are so stressed about their IELTS speaking test that they forget even the most basic linking words, like also, but, and so. 2. Using formal linking words. If you go online and search for linking word lists, you will see both formal and informal linking words mixed together. This is why many students use words like moreover, nevertheless, and therefore in their answers, because they think it will increase their score. Well, it won't. Save these formal alternatives for the writing section. Trust me, you'll need them there. Instead, focus on the linking words used in spoken English. Mistake number 3, using linking words incorrectly. Some students try using as many connecting words as possible. Others simply use them incorrectly. Either way, the result is often that your answers sound forced and unnatural. And remember, sounding natural is the main thing to focus on. So, to make sure you get the most of today's video, don't write down and memorize every single linking word. Instead, focus on the ones you like and think you're likely to use on the day of the test. Then, come up with sample sentences of how you might use them in your speech. And practice, practice, and practice until these connectors become automatic and you no longer think about them when you speak. Also, avoid learning linking words that are too formal or that people rarely use. That's why in this lesson, I've tried to choose the most common linkers that I hear native speakers use all the time. Finally, let's get to the linking words themselves. The first 4 linking words that you definitely know are also, but, so, and. Though they're very basic and you probably know them well, they are usually the ones that native speakers use all the time. Let me give you some examples of how to use them in the IELTS speaking. Question: do you enjoy cooking? Yes, absolutely. It allows me to be creative and experiment with different flavors. I also find it relaxing after a long day at work. Question: what kind of music do you like? I like various genres of music. Classical music is my favorite, but I also enjoy listening to jazz and pop occasionally, so it really depends on my mood. Question: do you prefer to study alone or in a group? I prefer to study alone. It allows me to focus better and work at my own pace. But I also find group study sessions helpful for discussing complex topics and clarifying doubts. Question: how often do you exercise? I try to exercise regularly. I go for a run 3 times a week and swim almost every day. Also, I do yoga at home on the weekends. So I aim to maintain a healthy balance between cardio and flexibility exercises. Let's move on. Number 5, besides. You have to be careful with this one. People often confuse it with and, in addition, or moreover. However, the connotation is slightly different. We use besides when we add an idea as an afterthought. For example, you're talking about a topic and a new idea comes to you while you're speaking. I don't really want to see that movie. I'm quite busy with my coursework at the moment. Besides, I checked the reviews and they're not that great. Number 6, to be honest. Another very popular linking expression. We use it in informal conversation to add authenticity or emphasize the speaker's sincerity. To be honest, I didn't really enjoy the concert. A similar expression is to tell the truth. To tell the truth, I'm not sure if I can finish this project on time. The next two words on our list are overall and basically. We often use overall to give a summary or a general assessment. Overall, I think the conference was a success. Now, basically simplifies or summarizes a complex idea. Basically, it means that you have to study harder to pass the exam. The next set of linking words are also very helpful because they help you build complex sentences. One such example is unless. Unless introduces a contrasting idea or a condition. I usually don't call people unless it's urgent. They won't understand unless they experience it themselves. Unless you really need to reach me, don't call me. Another example is while. It usually contrasts two ideas or actions. While I'm quite busy with my project at the moment, I can find time to help you. 12. Though. It introduces a contrast or a concession. Though it was raining, we still went for a walk. I loved the movie's plot, though I didn't really like the actors. 13. Instead or instead of. Note that instead of is usually followed by a noun or a gerund, so you will never see an infinitive verb after it. Instead of going to the gym, I went to the movies with my friend. I didn't want to go back. Instead, I walked around the park until it got dark. The next two linking words to consider are actually and in fact. In IELTS speaking, using actually and in fact can help you clarify your ideas and provide additional details to support your arguments or examples. Actually is usually used to correct a misunderstanding or to provide a surprising or unexpected piece of information. It can also be used to introduce a contrasting idea. I thought the restaurant would be crowded, but it was actually quite empty. Actually, I have a different perspective on this matter. In fact, is used to introduce information that supports or confirms the previous statement. It is often used to provide evidence or support for an argument. In fact, there is a lot more to the story than meets the eye. Finally, we often use connecting words to add emphasis. For example, especially. We use especially when something stands out. It emphasizes a specific detail or aspect. I love sports, especially tennis. I need to score high on the IELTS speaking section in a few days, and I have no idea where to begin. There are so many tips and tricks out there that I feel overwhelmed. Questions like, what's your favorite perfume? Can you describe a major festival in your country? Puzzle me. I don't know if I should use fancy words like a plethora of, plummet, ubiquitous, and skyrocket. Or keep my answers simple. These are just a few of the typical problems IELTS students have when it comes to the IELTS speaking. Having taught IELTS for over 10 years, I've seen many different types of students, and all of them have struggled with this section of the test. Of course, they all had different problems, but most struggled with speaking fluently, coming up with ideas fast, expanding on their ideas, and staying calm when asked a difficult question. However, the majority of these problems will go away once you know what you're expected to do to get a high score. So, I decided to dedicate this video to all future IELTS test takers who want to score high on the speaking section of the IELTS. By the end of this video, I hope you will understand that the IELTS speaking is not as scary as it seems, and you will feel equipped with all the necessary tools and knowledge to tackle it effectively. Quick note before we begin. It's important to realize that your IELTS speaking score, just like the score you get for any other section of a language test, depends largely on your level. If you're an intermediate student, your preparation plan will be very different from that of an advanced English learner. You'll need to work on your conversation skills first and expand your vocabulary. A quick and effective way to do that is to watch videos, podcasts, or anything in English, and make daily oral summaries of what you've learned using 5 new words. You can also use the shadowing technique by listening to the speaker and repeating what they say as closely and quickly as possible. This technique is particularly effective for improving pronunciation, intonation, and overall speaking fluency. One of my students from my one-on-one sessions recently got an 8 on the speaking section after doing this every day for about a month. even though her level at the beginning of our lessons wasn't super high. If you want to know how to consistently get high scores on the IELTS speaking and writing, check out our IELTS prep book. It's one of my favorite products right now, because it not only provides you with all the necessary information to excel in the IELTS speaking, but also presents it in a simple and fun way. For example, let's look at the speaking module. It starts with a quick overview of the section and its format, all organized in tables, so you don't need to search the internet for this information. Next, we provide examples of the questions, followed by the scoring criteria. We've presented it in a straightforward and engaging manner, allowing you to rate your performance yourself. We then delve into each assessment criterion, offering not just tips, but a practical guide with sample answers, grammar revision, important pronunciation aspects, and more. There are also exercises to improve fluency, pronunciation, and speaking speed, all with links where you can practice immediately, tips to avoid repetition, fun resources to learn new words, useful prefixes, suffixes, and roots, common speaking topics with sample notes, and more. I'm personally very proud of this product, as it's the only guide you need, along with the Cambridge preparation books, to prepare for the IELTS test quickly and effectively, and get a high score on test day. The link to it is below, so feel free to check it out. Now, in today's video, we're going to tackle the IELTS speaking questions together. We'll walk through a simulation of the IELTS speaking section, step by step, so you can see exactly what's expected and how to deliver your answers effectively. Let's get started. Part 1. In this part, the examiner introduces themselves and asks you to introduce yourself. You'll be asked general questions about familiar topics, such as your home, family, work, studies, and interests. This section assesses your ability to communicate basic information and engage in casual conversation. I've tried to make the sample answers as universal as possible, so that many of you can relate to them and use them as a study guide. What do you usually do when you finish work, school each day? After work, I usually like to unwind by engaging in a few different activities. Typically, I'll start with some light exercise, such as a jog or a yoga session, which helps me clear my mind and release any built-up stress. After that, I enjoy cooking dinner, experimenting with new recipes, or sticking to my favorites. Evenings are usually reserved for spending quality time with my family, or catching up on a good book. Do you ever cycle to work or college? Yes, I do cycle to work occasionally. I think it's a great way to get some exercise into my daily routine. Riding my bike in the morning is refreshing and gives me a nice energy boost for the day. Do you prefer to travel to work in your own car or by public transport, and why? I usually prefer taking public transport to work. For one, it's better for the environment because it cuts down on the number of cars on the road and lowers emissions. Plus, I can use the travel time to catch up on reading, listen to podcasts, or just relax before starting a busy day. It also saves me the hassle of dealing with traffic jams and finding parking. However, on days when I have early meetings or need to carry a lot of materials, driving my own car can be more convenient. How much sleep do you need every night? Ideally, I need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night to feel fully rested and functional the next day. If I get fewer than 7 hours, I often feel sluggish and less focused, which can affect my performance at work and my overall well-being. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night? Why? Quite often, I'd say. Sometimes it may be because of external factors, such as noise or a sudden change in temperature. Other times it could be stress or anxiety about something happening in my life that doesn't let me sleep. What do you do to help you fall asleep at night? Why? I have a consistent bedtime routine. I dim the lights and turn off electronics about an hour before bed to signal my body that it's time to rest. I like to read a book or listen to calming music to relax. Sometimes I do meditation or deep breathing exercises to reduce stress. Keeping my room cool and sticking to a regular sleep schedule also helps me sleep better. That's the end of part 1. Part 2. In this part, you'll be given a task card with a topic and points to cover in your talk. You'll have 1 minute to prepare and make notes if you wish. Then you'll speak for 1 or 2 minutes on the topic without interruption. After you talk, the examiner may ask 1 or 2 follow-up questions related to the topic. This part tests your ability to speak at length on a given topic coherently and fluently. Describe a film or movie that you enjoyed. You should say when and where you saw it, what kind of film or movie it was, what happened, and explain why you liked the film or movie. One film that I thoroughly enjoyed was Inception. It's a thought-provoking sci-fi thriller directed by Christopher Nolan. I watched it at home with my friends last year during a movie night. Inception is a complex and intriguing movie that explores the concept of dream manipulation. It follows Dom Cobb, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who is a skilled thief that extracts valuable secrets from people's subconscious while they're dreaming. The main plot revolves around Cobb being offered a chance to clear his criminal record if he can successfully perform inception, which means planting an idea in someone's mind without them knowing. As the story unfolds, Cobb and his team navigate multiple layers of dreams, each more intricate than the last. The movie is packed with stunning visual effects, especially in scenes where the characters manipulate their dream environments, such as bending buildings and defying gravity. The tension builds as they face numerous obstacles and threats within the dream world, while trying to keep a grip on reality. The reason I enjoyed Inception so much was because of its incredibly original and intellectually stimulating storyline. It kept me engaged and sparked discussions with my friends long after the movie was over. The film's exploration of dreams and reality, along with its philosophical themes about the power of ideas, made it a profound and memorable experience. Also, the performances by the cast, especially DiCaprio, were outstanding, and Nolan's direction added depth and intensity to the story. So all that made it an unforgettable film that I really enjoyed. Finally, Part 3. Part 3 involves a discussion with the examiner about more abstract and complex ideas related to the topic you spoke about in Part 2. The examiner will ask questions that encourage you to analyze, discuss, and express your opinions on broader issues. This section evaluates your ability to discuss ideas in depth and justify your opinions. What kinds of films are popular with younger people in your country? How about older people? In my country, younger people tend to gravitate toward action movies and superhero franchises. For example, Marvel movies like Avengers and Spider-Man are big hits among teens and young adults. They love the thrilling special effects, epic battles, and relatable characters. They also love animated movies from studios like Pixar and Disney for their engaging stories and stunning animation. Older people often prefer dramas, historical films, and classic movies. They appreciate movies that offer deep storytelling and strong character development. For example, movies like The King's Speech and Beautiful Mind are better received by older audiences for their historical context and emotional depth. Documentaries and biopics are also favorites because they offer insightful perspectives on real-life events and figures. Is the acting in a film more important than the story? Why? Why not? I think both the acting and the story are crucial to the success of a movie, but if I had to choose, I'd say the story is more important. A compelling story is the backbone of a good movie. It's what keeps the audience engaged and invested in the characters' journeys. Even with stellar acting, a weak or poorly structured story can leave viewers unsatisfied. However, that shouldn't undermine the importance of good acting. Skilled actors bring characters to life, making the audience believe in their struggles, joys, and transformations. For example, I recently saw The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I have to say that his intense and immersive performance was key to conveying the raw and visceral nature of the story. I was quite impressed. Yet, without a compelling story to support it, even the best acting can fall flat. Do you think the cinema has increased or decreased in popularity in recent years? In recent years, The popularity of traditional movie theaters has declined somewhat, largely due to the rise of streaming services. Platforms such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus offer a wide variety of movies and shows that people can watch from the comfort of their own homes. The convenience and affordability of these services have made them a popular choice, especially among younger audiences. But that doesn't mean that movie theaters are becoming obsolete. Blockbuster releases and films with spectacular visual effects, such as Avatar, still draw large crowds to theaters. The experience of watching a movie on the big screen with high-quality sound and picture is something that streaming at home can't quite replicate. Besides, special events and film festivals continue to attract cinephiles who appreciate the communal aspect of watching movies in theater. So while there has been a shift toward home viewing, movie theaters still hold a special place for many people, especially for big releases and social outings. This is all the information you need to tackle the speaking section of the IELTS test. Congratulations! Now it's time to practice. Take as many tests as you can and try to apply all the strategies, tips and tricks you've just learned. If you're currently preparing for the test and want to check how ready you are, click on the link below to get your writing and speaking scored. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tips and tricks on how to ace the IELTS test. As always, remember that getting a high score on the IELTS is not an impossible feat. You can do it. Until next time, have fun studying, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!